I won't spend too much time on this, but another aspect of our community. So I told you about the personal things that I've had with being hit by an F-150, and then also too the Tesla Light Show. But because we are a charitable organization, we do huge fundraisers for natural disasters. We just did one for the Maui relief. It's really cool for us to be able to say like, hey, when we show up, we show out. Like people come.
The Tesla Takeover, which is now being called the X Takeover, right? And what people should be expecting because registration is open now. Hello and welcome to the next great car era. I'm your host, Daniel Martin, and today I'm sitting down with John Stringer and Kelvin G. of Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley, or TOSV for short. John founded TOSV in 2018, and Kelvin joined soon after as vice president. Fast forward, and now they run one of the largest and most active clubs. Tesla owner clubs are separate entities which are onboarded to Tesla's club program, which allows them to use official logos and special Tesla branding and resources. The program has grown to an international scale, and you might even have one in your region. John and Kelvin helped me understand all about the program, how their club grew to one of the largest, and the types of activities they create for you, whether you are an owner or just interested. Past events, like the Tesla Takeover, you might have heard of. Or perhaps you follow TOSV on X or listen to their podcast. But did you know they also host meetups, organize charitable events, help new owners learn about their cars, and connect members to shops for the best upgrades? In this episode, we sit down and talk about the history of TOSV, the Tesla Corsa that we all attended at Button Willow Raceway, the new X takeover for 2024, and the larger EV culture as seen from these leaders and all-around nice guys. Before we dive in, please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts, and follow us on socials. It helps a ton, and I really appreciate it. If you want to participate with the EVTUNERS community even more, check out our Patreon page for all sorts of exclusive access. And now with that, enjoy. Cool. So maybe as a just a quick lead in, could maybe a brief introduction, background, and kind of what role you both play with Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so I'm John Stringer, president and founder of Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley. Started the club back in October of 2018. Just like most people who got their Tesla, bought it, and it had a really, I guess you could say, life-changing moment, especially because I was driving 70 miles a day, and autopilot completely changed, my commute altogether, and I wanted to connect with the community, so got on Twitter, then now X, to engage with Elon and the Tesla community, and found out about the official program, hence why we get to utilize, we're an official partner to Tesla. So found out how to start one and started it back in 2018, with Kelvin being a day one member and joining our leadership staff shortly after it was founded. But yeah, I just wanted to bring the community together and was passionate about technology. And so this was like the perfect, it combined both worlds.
Yeah,
Awesome.
my name is, and I'm Kelvin G. I also was an early adopter, actually probably earlier than John. I actually started driving an EV back in 2011 with the Nissan Leaf. So drove that for 7 years, and then decided that thing died because they had no BMS. And so, battery management system. So the 100-mile range quickly became not a 100-mile range. And so I decided to upgrade to Tesla Model 3. Car finally came out in 2018. So picked up that. And I knew I was getting into a club and a community, but I really didn't know what I was really getting into. The community is so much more. I mean, it's just cool people that you meet, all walks of life, like-minded, right? Focus on the environment, Elon, the mission of Tesla. And so that's really what sold me, and found out about the club on Twitter back then, and joined the first event, and I was kind of hooked after that. And then an opening was made available for an event manager with the club, so I said, hey, I'll sign up for that. And so I started to help out with, producing the events every month. And then a leadership opportunity presented itself. And so now I'm the vice president. I run operations and marketing for TOSV.
Awesome. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about TOSV, but first I have a question for you, Kelvin. You have a 2018 Model 3,
Yes, sir.
Chrome Delete or no?
Of course.
That's
Of course. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I took delivery of it. It's the blue Model 3. Took delivery of it. Thought it was a gorgeous car, but
Yeah.
then slowly, you start to see more blue Model 3s here in the Bay Area, which is of course like Mecca for Tesla.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I decided, oh God, I got to differentiate. So, and then also eventually, as I learned, when you're in a leadership position for the largest, baddest Tesla owners club in North America, you gotta do something, different with your car. Um, so I've got PPF on it, stealth PPF. But first thing I did was upgrade my wheels, and so there's a number of mods on it, mostly cosmetic, but you have to stand out and do
Yeah.
something.
It's
Yeah,
fun. It's fun.
yeah,
So
100%.
were both of you guys into cars before kind of Teslas or before EVs, or and this was just kind of the next logical evolution of your interest, or was the EV kind of coming on the scene really the something that got you to start paying attention to four wheels?
This is a really good question, Dan. And John, you should go first because your answer is probably shorter than mine.
Okay. Yeah, no. So I would say for me, grew up. So my first car ever actually was a Subaru 2.5 RS. It was the Integra
Oh,
Killer.
nice. Yeah.
So I was always into kind of like, Integras, Subarus, like some of that kind of like culture, even S2000s as far as like following and M3s. So I was always very familiar with like the cars, obviously not necessarily like modifying it or, putting in sway bars and just all that stuff.
Sure.
But definitely kind of knew my cars. And really, actually, it was my wife who told me about Tesla. She was like, especially because of the EV, not only the tax credit, but the carpool lane was a huge aspect of it. Long story short,
Sure.
got in the car and, it was the future. And so for me, definitely not a huge car background. But the technology and really having a car software on wheels or an iPhone on wheels, as they say,
Yeah.
really just kind of like brought me in full force. And obviously we'll get into Tesla Corsa, but I feel like that was the kind of not necessarily the climax, but now I feel like I've experienced almost every aspect of what you can do with this car. The track was kind of the last checkbox because I have a Model X, so I already have like the suspension and some of the other stuff that already just comes stock on the car. But yeah, so that's a little bit of background on me.
Cool.
Yeah.
How
For
about you,
for
Kelvin?
me, yeah, for me, I was always a car guy. I was the kid with the posters in your bedroom with the white Lamborghini Countach and then
Yes.
the red Ferrari Testarossa. So, and I was an 80s child, so I grew up with, watching Magnum PI
Uh-huh.
and Miami Vice and all the cool cars. So I was always into cars growing up as a kid. And then, my first car wasn't all that. It was just, a commuter car, a Nissan Sentra that my dad bought just so I can commute back and forth from college. But I bought my first BMW when I was 25 years old, and I was pretty proud of that. It was a 325 IS.
Yeah.
And I really liked BMWs, so I became a BMW file, and like I got an X5 when it first came out. Uh, had a young family at the time, so my wife had a BMW also, so we were a BMW family through and through. But then, towards the late 90s, early aughts, my interest in cars started to wane because they just kind of all became the same things, like nothing interesting, right? It's basically the same
Yeah.
tech. The interiors look the same. And I just started getting bored of cars until really, EV started to come out, hence my early adoption of the Nissan Leaf. Um, and driving that, I thought I was driving the Starship Enterprise at the time, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so cool. But really wasn't until the Tesla, Model 3 came out where I really saw the future, right? With, the mobile app and, autopilot and all that. And so I saw the future of transportation, and it was all over after that.
I really love that. I'm often telling my view, and I think it's a really similar story that we are in right now, what I would call the next great car era, hence the podcast name, right? And it's like the 90s, great era for cars, 70s, 80s, some really great original cars came out, the 60s, of course. These are these eras that enthusiasts, people look back to. But I really think right now with EVs and the things that are happening, from like daily driving to the new types of tech to the safety to performance driving and brand new types of show cars and the modifications, it's happening right now. And someday we're going to be looking back like, wow, the 20 teens and 2020s, that was a pretty cool time. So it's just nice to enjoy it while it's happening.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting too, if you just and you and probably Kelvin are better experts in this space than myself, but how will even the age of like ICE combustion be viewed in the world when you really look at the future of cars 10, 20 years from now? Is that going to be like that was just like a building block to what we will have? Or was that seen as more of like, like still it is today, where that is the future? People still think like, I mean, you post stuff on social media, people still think EVs are just a complete waste of time. So it'll be interesting 10, 20 years, like you said, when we look back on this time, not only during the transition, but really the start of it. Because like if you look at just transportation in general, right, from like the horse and the wagon to just continuing to go from there, will this just be seen as like the horse and the wagon, or is this going to be seen as potentially a blip? Obviously I think EVs are the future, but it'll be really interesting to see how we look back on this time.
Yeah, it really will be. I tend to agree with you. I think that this is a paradigm shift, and in 20, 30 years there will still be some ICE cars around, but they're going to be like people who race horses, right? That very specific niche of folks, and that's really cool. Cool cars. There's been a lot of technology and innovation around ICE cars, and that's great, but this EV stuff is pretty interesting and it's brand new. It's a new frontier, and that's pretty cool too. That's where I get most excited.
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit more about this community. So when I bought my Tesla, I got mine finally in 2022 Model 3 Performance. I'd been tracking EVs, and I don't mean that like driving on the track, like just watching them for years before that. I'd been interested from the performance standpoint, interested from the kind of environmental standpoint, kind of the whole spectrum. So I'd been watching, and finally the time came for me that I was able to get one. And as I start looking around online and seeing what's available, I see these Tesla Owners Club. And it was kind of an organic find. But then it's like, well, wait a minute, there's a Tesla Owners Club over here, and there's one over there. And what am I looking at here? So maybe as the Tesla owner Silicon Valley, can you kind of demystify this program a little bit for me?
Yeah, I can kick us off, and then Kelvin, if you want to add in or give your perspective. So the official owners program is actually, so we're an official partner. We're an independently run organization and not affiliated. And yet, obviously, as you can see on Kelvin's shirt, if he lifts it up a little bit, we actually get to utilize the Tesla T logo.
Yeah,
So so we're an official partner to them. So it's kind of similar to potentially like, BMW Owners of America or the Porsche clubs. It's kind of like got that. But as we know, like Tesla owners are just, they run a little bit different. They're a lot more enthusiastic potentially, just depending on kind of like the early days of Apple, just huge fans, and it just kind of comes with a
sure.
different punch, I guess you could say. But yeah, every club is run independently. So there is kind of this umbrella thing of like, we're all kind of partners together, but every club organization, their leadership can run it differently. Some of them are a little bit, maybe they do a couple events a year. Some of them may not even do any anymore.
Hmm.
And then there's clubs kind of like unique like us who are just doing events every month. And also we're really just becoming even more than just, a kind of like, let's say, an in-person community. But really, again, the way that the clubs are differentiated is regionally, or, within California, there's probably like 10 clubs in itself. So it's all broken up, but you go to Europe, it's split up by country. You have a club of Norway, Spain, France, Austria, and so forth and so on. But that's a little bit about
Wow.
like how they're broken up, and the good and the bad of, like, again, some of these clubs are very dormant. They don't do a whole lot, or, maybe there were original like Model S owners from back in 2012, 2013. And potentially even the people that started it have kind of moved on. They're buying Lucids now or something else. So it really kind of just, it kind of sucks, because it's like, I think at least for us, I take a lot of pride in, and especially a lot of pride in the stuff that Kelvin does and his creativity in running these events. But I really feel like we set the gold standard as far as like what a club should be and what it should look like, and especially with the events that we put on. But it's a bummer when you have like clubs from other areas. They're like, oh man, like, is there something like what you guys are doing in our area? And, depending on where it is, I'll refer them. But the reality is, unfortunately, it's really up to the leaders to make it what they want it to be, or what it should be.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And I'll talk about the people part, right? Because that's really what makes clubs in the community really fun, is you get a bunch of like-minded people together, right? And these, especially here in Silicon Valley, these people tend to be early adopters, right? Forward thinking,
Mhm.
tech-centric, and they appreciate Teslas for their technology, right? They're not ashamed of it, all right? And so uh, that's fun when you get people together like that, right? They're like-minded, they share the same mission in terms of renewable energy and clean energy and all that, although not everyone's about the environment. A lot of people buy Teslas just because of the performance aspect, which is fine, nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that, because that's also another commonality that we all have, is they're great cars, right?
Yeah.
They're high performance cars, and people like that. So we all talk about that. So many common elements, or foundations we can all rally around when we all get together. And so that's really what makes this community great. Actually, John, you've got a great story about how the community rallied about, what happened to you in your car when you had that incident, and the community came out and really showed you what the community can do, the power of community when, a particular member, has a particular cry for help. So maybe you can share that story.
Yeah, and maybe I'll share two stories. So I'll share a personal story of my car getting hit by another F-150, and then also I think the light show from the Tesla Takeover is a great story as well. But yeah, I think that's the big thing. I guess, to continue to further answer your question before I get into those stories is, we're a community of owners, but also advocates. And so in a lot of cases, like, there are states, for example, that can't even have Teslas being sold in them. And so a lot
Right.
of these owners clubs will get involved locally in state legislation and go voice their opinion, like New Mexico, like Texas, like Connecticut, some of those, Connecticut, Maryland, all those states that have this, like, these weird laws that are not, again, forward thinking, and they're just really just trying to keep Tesla out.
Dealer
So again,
laws from back in the day.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's one of those things where, we're enthusiasts, owners, and advocates. That's kind of like the three pillars.
Yeah.
But I think, especially now with what we have, I really, there's really a heart aspect to this, where you just know that this community is so much bigger than yourselves. Because not only does Tesla bring people together, does the mission bring people together, but when you're doing things that are positive, that are, pushing things forward and having an impact, you really reflect and you realize, again, this is so much bigger than yourself. So I had a situation. Actually, the funny thing is, yeah, so I got my Model X P100D in July, like 3rd or 4th. Yeah, I think I got it July 3rd. Um,
Nice.
like right after the quarter. Sorry, backing up. I got it June, like it was like June 30th or something like that, like the last day of the quarter. They were doing a bunch of discounts, free lifetime supercharging, all that stuff. Got my car 5 days later. I'm going to Jack in the Box on 4th of July. Don't ask me why I'm not barbecuing, but I was going I was going to get
Can't barbecue tacos.
yeah, exactly. I was going to get some Jack in the Box with my at the time, I guess, 5-year-old son. And we turned out onto like a one-way road, but people kind of speed in those areas. And so this person I think was going pretty fast. So I jumped out, but again, accelerated, and they got behind me, started tailgating me. They waited for a car to bypass me. They went over the double yellow line, and then their F-150 whacked my Model X. And then, yeah, with my son in the car,
Whoa.
he just drove off. And then, long story short, I yell at my son. I'm like, "Hey, are you okay? Are you like, because it was a big impact." He said, "Yes, I'm fine, but like my head hurts a little bit or whatever." I finally look up, and this guy had taken off. And so what ended up happening is I start speeding, and by the time I'm speeding and starting to go down some like residential streets, I'm like, all right, this is really dumb. I have it on video because thankfully you have literally the 360 dash cam video going all the time. I
Yeah.
literally have a camera on wheels. So I saved it, immediately called 911, and went to Los Gatos PD, and they took all of the information. Unfortunately, I think, with a lot of this stuff, it didn't really see like it was a big deal. So I at that point, because literally all he did was just hand me a card. And then it was like, I'm like, do you need the video? Like, he literally didn't seem to care. And so either way, I was able to send him the video. But I took to social media, I tagged a bunch of the local news stations in the Bay Area. And I had probably like 4 or 5 reporters come out, and, a bunch of the community people also retweeting, getting the information out. And I posted the dash cam videos as well. Within about 15 hours, I think all of the news agencies had called Los Gatos PD. What's the status? What's the status? What's the status? And so they're feeling pressure. But then I think thankfully there was a good Samaritan who knew this person and turned them in. And he got arrested for a misdemeanor, like reckless driving and some of this other stuff. I do think he was intoxicated, but again, it was like they arrested him pretty far after, obviously the event.
Yeah.
But that's like a huge thing there. So just again, realizing the power that comes with, building a community and having a platform and a voice. And then the second thing was we had the Tesla Takeover light show, which again was run. So for us, we were probably thinking like we would just do some like maybe some standard light show or whatever, or something, a small pre-programmed. And we knew that the Tesla Owners of Austria was going to come, along with people from the Tesla Owners of Singapore, a guy named Darren. And they both had put on very large light shows. And so what did they do? They designed the first ever Cybertruck designed light show with Simon from Tesla Lightshow.io, came from the UK, and they came with 400 USB sticks, and we had 172 Teslas essentially designed in the Cybertruck formation, and then like about 110 of them on the side. So it was 172 altogether. And again, these guys, imagine handing your Model 3 Performance to someone to go do something, and you have absolute trust in them. That's exactly what happened. They traveled halfway across the world to come and just put on this amazing community event. And if you just go to our YouTube channel and check it out, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Again, just realizing like the people that were even running it, they don't speak English as their first language. So they're trying to figure out like, okay, what's the German version of like USB stick, and like sticking it here. And so it's just like, it just shows how big this community is now. It's no longer just like, a bunch of people in California buying these EVs. It's like, this is a global phenomenon, right? So
Yeah.
those two things, like I've, been a personal, one of them was very personal. The second one was obviously more, something like our club can really relate to, and Kelvin can even obviously speak to, because he was there.
Yeah.
But it was just, just really bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
That's how strong the community is.
And the other thing I'll just throw out, Dan, and so, I think some of the parts of the world are aware of this, but pre-COVID, because the Tesla community wanted Tesla to survive and be successful,
Mhm.
we would volunteer at end of quarter delivery events and help with the handoff, because Tesla didn't have time because you have so many people trying to take delivery of their cars, and so we would volunteer our time on weekends to help with orientation and helping these new owners understand their cars, right? In terms of how to use it, charging, answer all their questions. And so that was unheard of at the time. And so, people started criticizing. It's like last thing Elon needs is free labor. Why are you doing this, right? But it was all about helping out and making sure Tesla is successful. And even post COVID, even now Tesla does the touchless delivery, so they don't really need our help anymore because they have a more efficient way of distributing cars. But we have owners who still ask us to this day, hey, does Tesla still need our help? And they'll still go to the service centers or areas, and they'll peel off plastic off the cars as they roll off the trucks. So they're that passionate about the mission. So it just shows you what the community is about.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's always fun when you get a new toy, you want to be able to get, talk with someone else that enjoys it as well. And so that's I'd never heard the story about you folks leaning in to help with deliveries, but I could totally see how that would make people's day to be like, have it a little bit explained, and so they don't have to, learn the hard way, like that if you just walk away from the charging port, it closes itself. You don't have to just push it. Stuff like that. That's cool.
And to piggyback off of that, that's really what the clubs are about. It's really to be like, once you buy your car, where do you go? Who do you talk to? At least we're the kind of like that first form of like community that you could get access to. Hey, where should I go get my car wrapped? What type of modification should I do? What type of accessories should I do? And even ultimately, like you're answering some of those questions with EVTUNERS, and your podcast is really like even further. Like, so it's not only like, hey, what type of charging pad should I get or what type of desk wedge, if I want to work in my car, what can I buy? You're even like kind of like that further niche, further up the funnel. But that's really what the community is. And so we, in a lot of ways, the way I kind of talk about what our club is, we are the next stop of ownership. Once you buy your car, we can help you out with whatever you need. Like, I may not know all the modifications things, but I can point them to people like yourself. We have something locally Zev centric. Those guys are mod heads too.
Yeah.
So there's just Unplugged Performance. So there's just a lot of resources that we have because we've been in the community now for about 5 years that we can just help you out with.
That's awesome. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of those bigger events, but before we transition into that, what are some of the more smaller events that you guys do? You mentioned the monthly sort of get-togethers, the volunteering. If I'm a prospective member, I just got a car and I'm in your area, what could I maybe get involved with?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. We take pride in doing lots of different events. And for us, it's all about the customer experience. It's making sure our members have a great time at any of our events, whether it's a big event or a small event. And so we'll do ride-in drives. So do plan out a route, right, in the wilderness or through a park, and we'll meet up at a supercharger, and then we'll plan out the route, and then we'll have like a communal event afterwards. So we'll do that. We'll do cars and coffee, again, take over supercharger and set out some coffee and some donuts, and then just have fun. We'll do a Funker treat around holidays, like the Halloween.
Cool.
We do a holiday toy drive at the end of the year. That's one of our bigger events. But that's giving back to the community. So we partner with the Palo Alto Fire Department, and we raise what was it, $5,000 worth of toys?
No, this past year was 10. The
Was it
first
10?
year was like 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in return, the fire department blocks off the street for us, and so we'll just have a little block party, right, with just nothing but Teslas, and everyone bring their toys in the frunks, and we'll have a little contest. Whoever can decorate their frunk the coolest holiday decorations, they'll win a prize. So we have fun with it. So those are the types of events we'll do. We'll do wine tastings also. We'll drive to a winery.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we had a planned beach cleanup last year. So yeah, we try to mix it up and do a diverse type of event every month.
And is it open to anyone, or do you have to be within the region?
And that's a good question. So they're all free events. We're a free club, so we don't charge a membership due. So anyone can join our club, and we just ask for an email address, and then we send out the invite. And in terms of the region, we have people driving all over the place to do our events, and even non Tesla owners, they'll find out about our events on some kind of website and public site, and they'll just come, and that's fine too.
Cool.
Right, it's part of our mission is to educate the unwashed masses, right? So we welcome ICE owners or Tesla enthusiasts who aren't owners yet. But yeah, we have people who drive all over the area to just come to our events, which is kind of cool. And
I mean,
yeah, and we're one of the bigger clubs too, so we have a lot of cars. So finding space for a lot of cars sometimes is a challenge for us.
I bet.
yeah, so a lot more of our local events, obviously we're going to draw people more locally, but we have some events like take the Tesla course event. I know we'll get into that a little bit. But there was a person from Salem, Oregon that came down that found out about it. We've had a person, I believe her name is Somi. She came down from Vancouver, Canada for a couple of our events. One of our workshops at Exclusive Motorsports out in out in like the North Bay or East Bay. So it's just like, we have people that will travel, and then now that we launched or have been running 3 years the Tesla Takeover, which is the biggest Tesla community event most likely in the world, definitely North America, Europe. Because we run that event, like our reach just kind of expands a lot further. So it really just depends on what's going on. Obviously, the takeover is the one where everyone will come from, like Florida. You'll have people from coming, obviously, even across both oceans, the Pacific and Atlantic. But so again, more of the events that Kelvin was talking about, the local ones, that's probably more local, but you'll
Yeah.
see people drive down depending on what's going on.
Yeah, we do this event with a local wrap shop called SS Customs, and we call it Beers, Tacos, and Teslas because we serve beer and
Sold.
we serve tacos. Yeah, exactly.
You should come. We've had 3 already.
So
I'll
we
be
had a
there.
third annual. Well, yeah, like John said, we have people from LA who drive up to that, and we had someone from Las Vegas drive out just for that one local event. So it's kind of blows your mind about what people will do, how far they will come just to participate in a communal event.
That's
Yeah, and
really cool.
I won't spend too much time on this, but another aspect of our community. So I told you about the personal things that I've had with being hit by an F-150, and then also to the Tesla Light Show. But because we are a charitable organization, we do huge fundraisers for natural disasters. We just did one for the Maui relief. Specifically, we raised over $6,000. We did one for Hurricane Ida, raised over close to 10 for that. So it's just like, and the Austin freeze over was like something like 6 or 7,000. So there's a lot that we do to help. Just, again, we're about the community. We're here to help people through difficult situations if there's something we can do about it. But that again is just another aspect of our club and of the community and of the impact that we can drive.
Sounds great. A place to make friends, be impactful, have fun. As you know, that I'm going to be in your neck of the woods here in the near future. So I'm looking forward personally to swinging through on some of these events. So it's going to be great.
I'd love to have you.
So let's switch gears a little bit to one of the events that's already done. So we recently just buttoned up, pun intended, at Button Willow Tesla Corsa. And So could you tell me a little bit about like how that collaboration went? Because and I might be butchering this, but Tesla Corsa is kind of another organization in and of itself, right? You guys collaborated on this in some capacity. But then it was an opportunity for everyone to get out and try tracking their cars, whether they are seasoned or have never set foot on a track before.
Yeah, that's right. You want to start, John?
Yeah, I can start. There's some history here. So this event has been like, I feel like 2 years in the making. So Tesla Corsa, again, as you know, is its own organization. Kind of Unplugged is the one behind it. Unplugged Performance. They're down in Hawthorne, right next to the design studio, the Tesla Design Studio. They put this on. That's kind of their event. And actually, they do it. I think they did an Atlanta event, and they're doing. I know Ben. He's headed to Austria to do a Tesla Corsa there. So it's starting to go global.
Wow.
But long story short, I know Ben personally from the past 2 years, and we've became really good friends. They've been huge supporters of the Tesla Takeover, and really they're one of those big companies that's really helping push the mission forward, specifically on the performance side with all the stuff that they do with their accessories, but really even Pikes Peak, which I don't know if we want to get into, but they do a lot of stuff they're kind of like, the way I see them is the AMG of Mercedes, but for Tesla. So really just like the performance enhancement brand that is really helping push this forward. And so they set up this event. So we've just been talking for a long time about doing a collaboration event with them. The calendars, were just pushing it out. And also too, again, they meet in Bakersfield. We're Silicon Valley. So it's pretty far, but again, given our reach, that's why it was like actually really a huge huge thanks to them that they literally did an exclusive event for us. And the great thing is, I think, kind of pat on the back of Kelvin and myself on what we were able to accomplish. It was like the second or third largest attendance that they've ever had.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So,
Nicely done.
It's really cool for us to be able to say like, hey, when we show up, we show out, like people come. So that's a little bit about it, but Kelvin can add even further details.
Yeah, so just a little bit more context. So yeah, Unplugged Performance was founded by two gentlemen, Ben Schaefer and Avi. And Ben's a great guy. You might actually want to invite him for a future podcast, Dan. Really, really great member of the community. He's got a really great story too. He used to work on Nissan cars back then and tune them up and race them. So he knows a lot about racing. Yeah. But once he got his hands on a Tesla, he's same thing, game over. He saw the future of racing, and it wasn't ice cars anymore. And so he used to joke. Actually, he didn't joke. He actually told us after this Tesla Corsa event was over that Dark Helmet, the enhanced Model S Plaid car that they've tuned up. It's a four-door family sedan, and it did a 143 lap at Button Willow, and a purpose-built Porsche, right, which was tuned for racing specifically. And then spent a lot more money on the car. It was a good 7 seconds slower. So it was.
Yep.
It was, yeah. So Teslas can hand out a beat down, right, in a very easy way. But anyways, he's got a great story. The whole purpose of Tesla Corsa is to introduce lay people to track. That's the whole mission. And so they have different levels, introductory level, where you can sit down with you get partnered with a trainer who will ride shotgun with you, and then they have more advanced levels as well. But that's the whole mission, and we've been trying to plan this event for the last 2 years, and for whatever reason, we just couldn't get the timing right. And so finally, we committed to this event, put it down in the calendar, and then we committed to getting our members to go there, and that's the kind of the results you saw. I think 44 cars, right, showed out for it, and that was I think one of the best attended events. So Ben was really happy, and he also had the dream of doing that parade lap towards the end of the day, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he really his real vision is try to break the world record, having as many Teslas on the track at the same time. And so, I think someday we'll probably get 100 cars on the track at some point, but that was a good start. And so he was pretty happy, and that was he wanted to get a lot of video coverage of that momentous event. So overall, he was pretty pleased, and we're editing the footage from that event and get some drone stuff coming from the video crew. So we'll be sharing that out on social pretty soon. But it was a fun event, which I'm sure you'll agree, Dan.
Yeah, it was really really fun. I had never been to a Tesla Corsa, and I have started getting into track. So the car is still way faster than me, but I'm learning and really enjoying that. But what was really neat is being on the track with just Teslas, because I'm usually in HPDE groups within NASA, and it's a mix of, Toyota 86s or the BRZs, you got Mustangs, you got Beamers, Porsches, and it's great. Everyone's together having a good time, but maybe one or two Teslas at the entire event weekend. And now here we have 44 Teslas. You're going out with a group of only Teslas. It was really neat and great meeting all sorts of different people. Lots of fun. So I'm looking forward to doing it again.
And it's the quietest car event you've probably been a part of too, right? Performance car event, right?
That's right. No earplugs required.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
curious,
actually
John, on how much fun you had, because it was your first time at the track, right?
Yeah, I'll make a comment kind of off the joke of what Kelvin was saying. It was so funny. Well, again, there's not a knock on ice cars per se, but I remember, even growing up as a kid, just, the louder the car would roar, the funner it would be. And then now it's like, as I've adapted into this EV space, it's just hearing I hate to say it, little Miatas going by. It's just like, it feels like this loud racket. Versus, yeah, when the Teslas are on the road, it's just like, they're ripping and just destroying the competition, especially on depending on what the cars are. But yeah, it was my first experience. I had never tracked a car, only had had my cleats hung up on go-karting and doing like K1 out in the Bay Area, is a local place out here. So
Cool.
had a ton of fun, and was able to, I had a pair of new Michelins on my car from the Tesla Takeover. And so was like really excited to just come take it out. But yeah, I have a Model X. So you have a family SUV. And, again, I had pretty much had most experiences in a Tesla. The only thing I hadn't done yet was tracking it. But it was so much fun. I mean, especially Button Willow, there's really only one wall that you have to worry about. And so there was actually I did four sessions. There was 2 times I believe I got on the dirt, but even being able to navigate through that was really cool. And yeah, it was just a fun experience, especially like this adrenaline rush. And then also too, being able to deal with, various scenarios of like the car, overturning or not braking enough and turning in after the turn, and just learning how to kind of go towards the left side and then weave your way in, but braking before you get in. So just a lot of that. But I can see how it becomes like a very addictive, and you start just like not only tires, you start, especially if I had like a Model 3, you start going suspension and just like the whole 9 yards. But it was a ton of fun. And the Model X, I can say the P100D, it rips. So I was passing, again, this was the beginners class, so don't get me wrong. But yeah, I was passing 3s and Ys, and at one point I was just like, I was hoping this Plaid would just get out of the way. So like, yeah, it was fun. And I'm probably one of those people, especially like I go loose when I was out there. So there was nothing that the car could not do after that run, after those 4 runs. So other than the cars being in front of you, because I think that's the big difference, obviously, with tracking. Like, you have to be if it was only me on the course, then that's a different story. But you have to be mindful of the people that are in front of you. But outside of that, like, I definitely felt like I took it. There was definitely breakaways and turns with nobody in front of me. And so, you can just take those however you want. And it was, yeah, so it was a super fun course, Button Willow, super fun experience. And now I feel like I definitely would be a fan of trying it or doing it again, especially in a 3 or Y.
That was my next question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I think like my next car is going to be a Cybertruck. So who knows? Maybe my track car is the Model X. But yeah, I mean, I would love to experience, especially driving it. So obviously, I know it's not necessarily a cheap hobby, but I would love if someone ever let me, just take their Model 3 around the track. That would be epic. Because those cars can just rip, you know.
Let's go, John.
Let's
We'll
do
do
it.
it. Yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah, no, for real. Let's do it. But one thing that I think is important to underline here about the expense. Tracking is expensive. There's no two ways about it. But just like in maintenance and daily driving a Tesla, it actually is relatively cheaper to track a Tesla than it is another car. You really just have tires and brakes. And then when you start getting into it, then you start adding suspension and new brake pads and upgrades and things like that. But that's any car that you do this, you get a Mustang or a Beamer, you're going to start wanting to add parts at it. But there's no oil changes. There's even the race gas. Like I have friends that are driving, Mustangs or Beamers. They're getting like 5 miles per gallon on the track race. So they go in and and you do the math of let's see, Buttonwillow is 3 miles around. You're going to go around that. So that's, over half a gallon per time. And that race fuel costs what, $8 a gallon, something like that. When we went to the superchargers, I was topping off and it was like $7 every time. So just in fuel costs alone, it's a lot cheaper. Plus, we're not popping engines where race cars usually are getting a new engine. If you're highly competitive, you're probably replacing your engine every year or every 2 years if you're lucky.
Wow.
Which is, $5,000 plus. So that's kind of another bonus if you're interested in dipping your toes in the track.
Yeah.
With electric, is that there's a whole lot less that can go wrong.
Yeah, no, clearly. But yeah, no, thanks for that information. I'm glad I learned that, but not surprised that it's definitely cheaper, obviously, in a Tesla versus the ICE cars. But yeah, it was either way. I think what's cool is that anybody can track.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally in a family SUV tracking my car. I have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, and my wife, but we have 6 people, and I literally took the car seats out, put it at our booth because that's how I prepped for it. I literally just showed up. Thankfully, again, new tires, and it has the adaptive suspension, or it has the suspension. It's not quite the latest adaptive suspension, but I just put it on low, and that's how I kind of prepped for it. And it was a complete blast. And I think that's also the other thing about Tesla Corsas, that sure, they want the mod nuts, the track nuts to come out, if that's the correct terminology, but it's really also meant for just anybody. And that was the insane thing about it, is, again, it was my first time, and it was an absolute blast.
I'm looking forward to the next one. And there's another big event that I'm looking forward to, which is also Tesla, but it's a little bit different than a track day. And that is the Tesla Takeover, which is now being called the X Takeover, right? We alluded to that a little bit throughout this conversation, but could we maybe focus on that for a little bit now, talk about what it is and now what it is going to be, and what people should be expecting, because registration is open now, right?
It is, yes. Thanks for that plug, Dan. So a little history there. So we did an event back in 2021 where there was a large supercharger opening in Fireball, right off of Highway 5.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. So it was the grand opening at that time. And so we said, hey, as a club, let's get together with other clubs and let's just meet up and converge there and celebrate the launch of that supercharger. And so that's what we did. And so we called it supercharger takeover, right? Or Fireball takeover. And we had several clubs, Tesla Club SoCal drove up from LA, and we drove down, and East Bay and several other clubs converged also, San Joaquin Valley. And it was a really successful event, right? A bunch of clubs coming together, members meeting other members from other clubs. We had giveaways. We did a fun video drone shot, time-lapse video. And so, people brought, their trailers and stuff. And so it was just a really fun event. And we said, you know what? This was such a blast. Let's do it again, but do it 10 times bigger. And so that's how the Tesla Takeover was born. And so we found a central location, which is in San Luis Obispo at the Madonna Inn. And we chose that specifically because it's, midpoint between NorCal and SoCal. So it's, fairly easy to get to wherever you are in California. First year was a great event. We had something like 20 exhibitors, 800 people showed up. So that was a great start, a lot of positive feedback. But everyone knew it was going to get bigger and better, and that's exactly what happened in year two. Year two, we had in excess of what was it, 2,000, John? I can't remember the number, but 1,800. Sorry, second year was 1,200,
Year
right?
two.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, year two was 1,200, 60 plus exhibitors. We had a content session. We had Sandy Monroe be our keynote. We had other cool YouTubers show up and influencers. And so that also was a cool event, just bigger and better. We had 30 plus show cars, customized Teslas. We had a contest for the best customized Tesla. We also had a showcase for cars, other cool cars that didn't want to participate in a contest. They just want to show off the cool wrap. And so we had another set of 30 cars there. So that was the second annual. And then we just finished in July our third annual Tesla Takeover, which is the biggest and baddest of them all. We had crazy number. What was it? A final number we said 2,000? 2,000.
Yeah, it
right?
was like 2,200 when you include kids. We sold about 1,800 and 1,850 adult tickets.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's it. That number doesn't include all the staff and all the exhibitors and their staff and then children. And there were a lot of kids there. So it was about 2,200 all in. So that was just an eye opener. And the feedback from that event was pretty obscene. It was people used the word magical, right? The people's minds were blown. They couldn't realize, they couldn't fathom how big the event was. So basically, Friday night we had two pre-events. We had a Central Coast ride and drive. So we had over 100 cars just show up to participate in the ride and drive. Just a scenic drive up the coast, Highway 1, and then up into the mountains. We had pulled off to the side of the road, just appreciate this $1 million view. So that was awesome. And if that wasn't enough, then at 9 p.m. we had the light show, the Tesla synchronized light show, which John talked about. And so again, we had 172 cars in the pattern of a Cybertruck. And that was all managed by the Tesla Club Austria guys and Darren from Singapore, and then Light Show IO guy from Simon from Light Show IO came from the UK. So that was a really cool event, all synchronized to the same music. I've Got a Feeling from the Black Eyed Peas, right? And
Nice.
Final Countdown was the other song. So you'll see the video. It's pretty epic. I've never been done before, and people's minds were blown. So that was just the pre-event. And so Saturday was day one. Again, that's when the actual show opened. So over 60 exhibitors. We had a camping expo. So we had, people love to camp in their Teslas, right? So
Sure.
one of the things people asked us was for an expo for camping. So we had the Light Ship, which was a purpose-built RV there. We had a Cyberlander. We had Camp Stream. We had a bunch of cool accessories for the camping. So that was the exhibitor. We had Sandy Monroe come back. We had Kim Java. We had Ross Gerber, Gary Black. So all the YouTubers, all the who's who list YouTubers and influencers.
Yeah, 2-Bit Da Vinci, Out of Spec, all of those guys, like all the heavy hitters in the space.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that was day one. And then you talk about the 30 plus customized Teslas. There was one guy who drove from Las Vegas. He actually ended up winning the best of show for his Tesla. So it was you have to see to believe it, Dan. It was just wicked. It was just, he had done so much to his car. It's hard to describe until you actually see it, pictures of it. Just words just
I
can't
think it's called
describe
like
it.
One Sexy Y or something.
Yeah.
It's
It's basically like a lowrider, but it's been totally pimped out.
Oh, it has the pinstriped paint,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that one. That's a great car.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I know handles better than names at this point.
You're like John.
Yeah, don't tell me your name. Tell me your handle.
Yes.
So we also had a showcase, the EV showcase. We had other EVs, so it wasn't just all Teslas. So we had a couple of Rivians there, or R1Ts, and Rivian actually sent to R1S there.
Oh, cool.
So that was really cool. We had a couple of Lucids. We had some original Roadsters, Tesla Roadsters, and Ford F-150 Lightning. The parking lot, which isn't really an attraction, but actually it kind of was this year because it looked like a Tesla delivery center. If you look at our parking lot, it was insane. We had over 800 Teslas in our parking lot of every color. So it was kind of fun to see the parking lot actually. We had food trucks, and then we had because it's a family friendly event, we had a kids zone. So slides and bounce houses and all that. So that was really cool. And then we had EV experiences. So we had a lot of e-bikes. There's e-bikes for kids. We had Arcimoto. We had the Australian adventure bike company Upco do e-bike demos. So we had an experiential part. And then for the performance enthusiasts, we just talked about Tesla Corsa, but Holly was our sponsor, and they put on a performance aspect of it.
Okay.
So they rented out a private airstrip about 15 minutes away, and for free, you can basically sign up, and as an add-on, you can participate in the performance aspect. So they call it the Holly High Voltage Experience. And you can do drag racing. There's a slalom course, and so for people who really enjoy doing that, there's a part of the event that you can do that. So that was day one. Day two was really May Musk. So May Musk is the mom of Elon Musk, and she came and she did a book signing. We had like a line of people, 7 people waiting, 20, 30 minutes in advance just to get to meet her and get her book signed. And then we had a nice chit chat, which was a standing room only keynote where we interviewed May, and she talked about her life, how she got started as a supermodel and as a dietitian, and how she raised 3 overachievers, let's say.
Mhm.
And that was a really well received keynote. So that was
Did you
a mind-blowing
hit
event.
on Holly High Voltage experience?
Yeah, I did talk about that. Yeah.
There's a lot. But it's kind of like if you've been to Electrify Expos, doing a lot of events, but they're kind of more like ours is our events tailored more to like someone who probably it's open to the if you just got your Tesla. Yes, we're open to a lot of those newcomers, but it's also to the people that just want to kind of like, it's almost like a little Tesla con, if like a Comic Con. Like you can come there, you can listen to the who's, you can buy accessories, you can connect with a lot of people that on X and social media. That's like one thing. It's like crazy. It's just like a huge collaboration of like people from all over the world coming together. But yeah, huge shout out to Kelvin for taking like a small idea that we had. We're like, hey, let's just make this Fireball takeover even bigger. I think it was March 2021 coming out of COVID. And he's really just taken it to the next level where it really is. Again, it's it's a lot more than like an Electrify Expo, right? It's just different. It's like kind of like further niche up the funnel, but really it's still open to everybody. And so I don't know if that was a good example, Kelvin. You should keep me honest here, but
No, it's fine. One other shout out, Aptera brought their Gamma vehicle.
Oh,
And
neat.
so, yeah, and that's not a vehicle that a lot of the public has seen. And so that was kind of an exclusive. And so they brought their Gamma vehicle. You can actually sit in it. I was really surprised they allow people to actually sit in it. And then their CEO came and we interviewed him on our main stage. And so that was really cool to give a sneak peek of what's to come. You know, the world's most efficient EV, right? Solar powered. Theoretically, you never even need to charge it because it just charges itself via the sun. And then we had this guy who created. He had a Model 3. He basically converted into a cyber car. So you think about the design, the vector design of a Cybertruck, where he
Yeah.
basically created his version of a cyber car using a Model 3 chassis. And so he brought that. It wasn't a finished product by any stretch of imagination, but he brought it anyways. And so it was just pretty cool to see something like that.
I love all of that creativity and seeing what people do, making it their own and
Yeah.
experimenting. So there was a shift here. It sounds like Tesla Takeover, it was Fireball Takeover, and then it was Tesla Takeover, and now it's X Takeover. And it seems you kind of mentioned that now there's some Rivians, there's Aptera, it's almost like, to use your analogy, John, it's almost like the mouth of the funnel is widening a little bit, for other types, not just Tesla owners now, but there's now more going on. Is that a correct estimation? Am I kind of connecting the dots right? Or
yeah, and really, I mean, there's kind of two things that go into this, right? I think the first thing is that I think it's something it's important to mention is that Tesla Takeover, was obviously an idea. It was something that had kind of previously been done. There was an issue where we did not own the domain. And so I think there is an aspect of like when we were trying to kind of build up the brand, build up the event, we ran into a situation where, we weren't going to be able to take the domain. So I think for us,
couldn't take it
that
over,
kind
huh?
of, huh?
Couldn't take it over.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sorry.
we really, I think the crazy thing about all of this, right, is that you start something and then you realize it's something completely different. And what that was people, like, you don't get involved into the Tesla community or even the EV community without potentially, probably more specifically the Tesla community, without also dabbling in SpaceX, because it's very similar journeys. The companies were started kind of around the same time, both went through similar bankruptcy stories. And so really, that's kind of why we were like, everyone just kept asking about space and all that other stuff. And really, again, stepping back, maybe I overstepped there, was X, the essence of X means everything. And so it's not the app, it's not associated with the app, it's literally just, it means everything. And so for us, like the super modified section can now become all EVs, right? We'll just have like 3 or 4 specific things that you need to have modified on your EV to be a part of it. But yeah, it really does open up into exclusivity of all EVs. It's still going to be the majority of the focus, obviously still going to be Tesla focused. But also too, we're going to be adding that aspect of SpaceX this upcoming year. So if you think about it too, there's not really a space con. And so for us, like, I think we're almost, kind of on pioneering the Tesla con world and the space con world in some ways. So next year, it's definitely going to be obviously very focused on, Teslas and EVs. But there's going to be an aspect of space that's going to be there. And that's still kind of being worked out on like what that will look like as this is its first year. But yeah, I'll throw it to Kelvin for anything else.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it on the head, but we can't talk about names yet, but we're really, really bullish about some of the speakers we have lined up for next year's event. People were kind of blown away that we were able to get May Musk to come to our event, and the bar's been raised and set, and we're not going to disappoint. So that's all I'm going to say.
Right on. So in the show notes here, folks, you'll see the link to sign up, and it's open already. I was actually asking you, Kelvin, about when does it get opened, and it's open now. So I'm excited. It'll be my first year, but good timing because I actually love space stuff too. So it's like cars, space. What more could you ask for? I guess tacos, but there's going to be taco trucks.
There will be.
Yeah. We had some mean food trucks and a taco truck as well. So you're going to enjoy yourself, Dan.
Awesome. So I know we need to wrap up here. I thank you guys so much for all of this time and diving into this, but maybe one last question for each of you from your sort of perspective and being involved with the community so much. What's your best advice for someone who's interested in EVs, maybe wants to make the jump into it, but isn't sure, or maybe just became an EV owner, but is looking to become more integrated in the community? What do you typically tell folks?
Kelvin, you want to start? Or you want me to?
Yeah, and I'll start. So for that first group, and I've got a member of my family who's kind of in that boat right now, right? Looking to trade in their hybrid SUV and go, all into EVs. So best advice is, do your homework, understand range is king, and but also understand that if you really want to drive your car somewhere, you really have to look at the charging experience. And right now, the supercharger network is second to none. And so, there's other manufacturers that have signed on to partner with Tesla to leverage the supercharger network, but none of those charging equipment will be installed into the cars until 2025 at the earliest. So if you're really looking at buying an EV now or leasing, and you want to actually take it on a road trip somewhere, you really have to look at Tesla as your only choice. So that's my one shout out there. In terms of the second group, it's just understanding that you're part of this adventure. Like you said, Dan, earlier in this podcast, this is probably a once in a lifetime, once in a generation transition right now that we're going through. It's a really, really exciting time, and to join the community and to participate in this this unique transition that we're in right now. And so there's other like-minded people just like you if you just bought an EV or a Tesla, and to sign up with a local community, a local club, because it's a lot of fun to just talk and meet with other people. I've met a lot of lifelong friends who I wouldn't have met otherwise if I had not signed up with the Tesla Owners Club.
Stop talking about me, man.
Yeah.
Don't be bashful now.
Yeah. Except this fool here on this podcast.
How about you, John?
Yeah, I would double down on pretty much everything Kelvin said. I think probably the things that I would add is just getting involved in the community. Kind of similar, like, why would people find EVTUNERS? It's right. It's just like it's the same thing. Just get involved in the community, search the forums, find the right things. I think if you're buying it specifically a Tesla, the Tesla Owners Program is a great one. Look up Tesla Owners and type in the name of your city, the name of your state, whatever. You'll find something. Same thing with EV owners. I think it's just get involved. I think overall, at this point, I think maybe the two biggest issues with people why they adopt potentially a Tesla or an EV is range and then potentially cost. But so on the second one, the cost is really just it's a non-factor at this point, especially with the way Dan, you're also in California. I mean, you can be in San Joaquin Valley and get a Tesla for $19,000 with incentives. There's a couple of websites out there that you can literally go in and just check the costs. Teslas are no longer, the expensive car anymore. I mean, the cost per mile over a 5-year period is now cheaper than a Toyota Corolla. It is that cheap to go buy a car. So it's a little bit more upfront, but long term, if you're into, looking at the full picture, you'll be fine. And then the second thing is, it's really just the charging experience. So if you're looking, depending on what brand you're looking at, again, check the forums. What are people saying? And really it comes down to your commute. if you're just doing local commutes around like 95% of your stuff, your gas station is your house. You charge every night. It's not a big deal. But if you're going to be in one of those situations, like for me, if my wife needed to take a road trip, like there's been a couple times I've flown into San Diego to visit family and she had to take the car down, or our Tesla. Like, um, unfortunately, I can't. It's hard for me to recommend some of the other brands, knowing that she could get to an Electrify America station or some of these other stations and not have a place to charge. Again, she's not as well versed in the charging apps and things like that. She just needs something, type in an address and just go. And that's what you kind of get with the Tesla experience. So really, again, it's about just educating yourself a little bit, getting rid of the nomenclatures. Like, price is not an issue. It's a non-factor at this point. The cost of it should continue to go down over time, just like TVs. The 4K TVs were super expensive, but now you can get one for like $500 from Best Buy. So it's one of those things where, and then again, range anxiety. It's similar to your car, right? When you're driving to Lake Tahoe and you're going up those hills, obviously, if you're getting 25 miles a gallon on the highway, you're probably going to be getting 18 or 19. It's all the same thing, right? It's just about getting familiar with your car, and getting familiar with what it says. Because even sometimes, I actually don't listen to the supercharger where it's telling me to stop, because I know at what percent what my car can do. Like Kelvin and I, we drove back up from Tesla Corsa and I got into Bakersfield with 2 miles, and it was telling me to stop at Kettleman City before charge for like 5 minutes, but I knew it could make it. So it's just like, I took that risk. But yeah, so it's just one of those things where, get involved in your local community, also educate yourself, like, because the range anxiety and the expense of it are really not kind of becoming less and less of a non-factor. Again, it kind of depends on what brand you're going to buy. But there's never been a better time to buy an EV. It's really exciting for what these cars are going to do.
So get out there and have fun. And there's lots of opportunities to
and
do
track
so.
your car too.
Heck yeah.
Modify it.
Doesn't matter what you drive, what you brought.
Exactly.
Thank you both, gentlemen, so much for taking the time. I learned a ton. It's great connecting with you, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was fun.